The Paranormal Activity. In the small town of Crestview, people spoke in hushed tones about Holloway Manor. It was the kind of house you'd see in a horror movie tall, with crooked windows and vines crawling up its sides. No one had lived there for decades, but everyone had a story about it. Some swore they'd seen a light flicker in the attic. Others claimed they heard whispers in the wind when they walked by. It was an old, creaky place, full of shadows, and it had a reputation that kept most people far away. But that was exactly why Alex, Emily, and Ryan wanted to go inside. It started as a joke one Friday night. The three of them were hanging out at Alex's place, watching a horror movie. Alex, always the skeptic, scoffed at the jump scares and predictable plot. "This stuff is so fake," he said. "Ghosts aren't real." Emily, who was a bit more superstitious, raised an eyebrow. "You wouldn't last 5 minutes in Holloway Manor." Alex smirked. "Is that a challenge?" Ryan, ever the adrenaline junkie, leaned forward with a grin. "I say we do it. Tonight." Before anyone could back out, they were piling into Alex's old car, driving through the winding roads out of town. The rain started as a drizzle but quickly turned into a heavy downpour, making the journey even more unsettling. By the time they pulled up to the manor, the rain had soaked the ground, turning it into a muddy mess. The house loomed over them, its silhouette sharp against the stormy sky. "Still think it's a good idea?" Emily asked, pulling her jacket tight around her. "Absolutely," Ryan said, already heading for the front door. Alex pulled out a flashlight and swung it around, lighting up the porch. The wooden boards creaked under their weight as they stepped up. The door, surprisingly, wasn't locked. It opened with a long, low groan, like the house itself was waking up after a long sleep. Inside, the air was cold and damp. It smelled like dust and something else they couldn't quite place, something rotten. They walked into the main hall, their footsteps echoing off the walls. The house was completely silent except for the rain pounding on the roof. "Creepy," Emily whispered, "but it's just an old house." They wandered through the rooms, joking and laughing to keep their nerves in check. The place was falling apart, peeling wallpaper, broken furniture, cobwebs in every corner. It was exactly what they expected, nothing more. But then they reached the staircase. Alex shined his flashlight up the steps. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing the second floor. Something about it felt wrong, like the shadows were too deep, the darkness too thick. Ryan stepped forward, ready to climb up, when they all heard it, a whisper. It was faint, almost drowned out by the rain, but unmistakable. It sounded like a woman's voice, soft and breathy, saying something they couldn't understand. "What the hell was that?" Ryan asked, his bravado faltering. Alex turned around, expecting to see Emily playing a trick on them, but she was frozen, eyes wide, staring up the stairs. "I didn't say anything," she whispered. The whisper came again, louder this time, like it was coming from the top of the stairs. Alex pointed his flashlight up, but there was nothing there, just shadows. "Maybe we should go," Emily said, her voice shaking. But Alex shook his head. He couldn't back out now. Not after all the tough talk. "It's just the wind," he said, though he didn't sound convinced. They climbed the stairs, each step making a loud creak. At the top, the hallway stretched out before them, lined with closed doors. The air was colder up here, and their breath came out in small clouds. Ryan opened the first door on the right. It was a bedroom, empty except for a cracked mirror leaning against the wall. He stepped inside, looking around, when the door slammed shut behind him. "Very funny. Guys," he called out, yanking at the handle. It didn't budge. "Okay, seriously, this isn't funny. We didn't do anything," Alex shouted, rattling the door from the other side. Suddenly, the mirror in the room began to fog up, like someone was breathing on it. Ryan backed away, his heart pounding. Slowly, words started to appear, written in the condensation. "Get out." He stumbled back, slamming into the door. "Open it. Open the door." Emily and Alex finally managed to pull it open, and Ryan burst out, pale and shaking. "The mirror," he stammered. There was something in the mirror. They all looked, but the fog had disappeared, leaving only their own reflections staring back at them. Emily grabbed Ryan's arm. "We need to leave now." But as they turned to go, the lights flickered. The whispering started again, louder this time, filling the entire hallway. It was a chorus of voices now, all saying the same thing. "You shouldn't be here." The sound was coming from everywhere and nowhere. Alex's flashlight flickered, casting strange shadows that seemed to move on their own. The temperature dropped even further, and they could see their breath hanging in the air like smoke. They ran for the stairs, but the whispering followed them, growing louder with every step. It was like the house was alive, its walls pulsing with energy. Just as they reached the front door, it slammed shut, locking them inside. Emily started pounding on the door. "Let us out," she screamed. Then, The chandelier above them began to sway. It creaked ominously, the chain straining as if it was going to snap. They barely had time to dive out of the way before it crashed to the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces. "This place is trying to kill us," Ryan shouted. Alex, no longer the skeptic, grabbed the door handle and twisted it desperately. It flew open with a blast of icy wind, and they tumbled out onto the porch, scrambling through the mud back to the car. They didn't stop until they were back at Alex's house, dripping wet and out of breath. None of them spoke for a long time, just sat there, listening to the rain hammer against the windows. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "We shouldn't have gone in there," she said quietly. Alex nodded, still pale. "I don't know what that was," he admitted, "but I never want to find out." They never spoke of it again after that night, but each of them knew the truth: they hadn't been alone in Holloway Manor, and whatever was there, it didn't want to be disturbed.